So my number three is um, kind of working on a theme here in terms of our interactions with people. It the process of having the discussions with the people that we have had, like really intelligent people, really thoughtful, empathetic people, is to be curious and to be curious about people's stories, to make the space for finding out more about them and to let them share more of their stories. To me, sometimes that means just listening and just kind of waiting to see how the conversation unfolds and goes. But then I also think such a huge lesson in that is to then turn that curiosity inward and to keep asking myself um, the questions that we ask in the podcast, the questions that we're asking our guests, to look at myself with those. And then to when I re-listen, particularly when I re-listen to our episodes for the first time, it's usually like, oh well, what was I getting at there, or were they getting at? And it inspires more questions for me, and I end up learning a lot about myself when I kind of turn that question inward.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny because I've caught myself projecting more than once, where
Yeah,
and it's not like a backhanded projection. There's a genuine curiosity, but I'm driving at it maybe a little too hard sometimes because I desperately want to. We've had such the caliber of people we've had on. I want to know. I want to know what their opinion is on some of these questions because I don't know. It's important, and I am curious.
yeah. Another thought that I had about the curiosity thing was like, I really asked myself after the Garth Mullins episode. I noticed that, like, when I found out about the book, The Weight of Air, and then very, very shortly after I found out about it, Garth posted this tweet about the book, that he was reading it or that he was kind of recommending it, and I hadn't read it yet, and I felt really like this real pull that I needed to read this book. And then, shit, if we can have a conversation with Garth Mullins about that book, like, how cool would that be? That was like the immediate thought. But one of my early therapists in recovery really looked at my subconscious and like looked at when I would do art or when I would create something, asking about, well, what pulled you towards that, or what about that inspired you? And I think I was inspired by the title of that book. I think I was inspired by little fragments of David Pose's story that I had heard from the descriptions of the book, where I thought, I think subconsciously I knew I'm going to learn a lot from this, about the acceptance of my story and about kind of going deeper, going another layer deeper in recovery. And that book rocked me. It rocked you. Yeah. I think it rocked Garth, and we had this incredibly interesting conversation about it. But like, even just asking myself, well, like, why was I so like compelled to like push that idea forward, that this is what we're going to do? We're going to read this book. We're going to talk to Garth about it. And that's what we're doing. Well, there was a lot to learn about that. And I think like that back part of my brain was saying, like, do this, Corey. You're going to figure another part of your story out here.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you led the charge on that one for sure, and I'm glad you did, because that, that to this day it's one of the most remarkable stories of addiction. Just a beautiful prose, and man, the connection, like some of the things that he was doing and stuff. I knew exactly. I felt like I knew right what was going on in his mind at the time, because I've thought the same thoughts that he was reiterating. And that was a really interesting way to do it, and a great idea, and it turned out really well.
Yeah, sometimes I think we put ourselves in these positions subconsciously when we need to learn another lesson from something.
It seems that way. Yeah, and it can also go the other way, right?
Totally.
With the self-sabotage, man, the subconscious mind is just it
Well,
freaks me
and
out.
that was my general theme throughout a lot of my adult life, was to learn things the hard way and to
Oh,
self-sabotage and then have to learn the lesson. So
yeah.
I give myself like a gentle pat on the back for saying, oh my god, I I learned that one intentionally and didn't have to learn some of those lessons the hard way.
You used your powers for good.
And the fact that I can notice that I'm like, oh, I didn't learn that lesson the hard way. I actually went about that in a constructive, creative, healthy way.
Yeah.
Well done, Corey.
Yeah. Well done.